The following review is intended for entertainment purposes and targeted for adult fans of the series. You're being cute. I'm so willing to have you in the video. But you have to behave a little bit more, ow. Thank you. A little bit more than you're behaving. Hello there, heroes. I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to another Kamen Rider Dragon Knight episode review. October was a fairly quiet month here on Orange Ranger videos, as I did a little more focusing on Orange Ranger plays, including playing a week of scary games for Pumpkin Ranger Week. You know, classic scary horror games like Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers and RBI Baseball? Ooh, ripped right up the middle. Now that should be a solid double because he had to go.
I'm scared.
Anyway, it's been an even hotter minute since I posted a Dragon Knight review, since on this channel I worked to get vlogs a bit more caught up, and then reviewed a Power Rangers fan film that I saw making the social media rounds. And to be honest with you, referencing back to Orange Ranger Plays, I'd be lying if I said I couldn't hear the gentle breezes of Yara calling to me even now. But I made a commitment and I am going to see it through. I have 23 more episodes of Kamen Rider Dragon Knight to review. So let's start to make a little progress there, shall we? Xaviax has added 2 new riders to his ranks, but we haven't really seen the suits, the weapons, or how these greedy brothers operate. Would you like to? Let's take a look at the 18th episode of Kamen Rider Dragon Knight, The Brothers Cho.
Please make sure you're subscribed to the channel.
Yeah, and make sure you got your notifications set up by hitting that little bell icon. Right you.
What he said was, you can consider checking us out on Patreon or Ko-fi at Orange Ranger Videos.
Recap! You know, actually, it's been almost 2 months. Let's touch on these really quick. Kit's dad's vision told him to watch out for himself. Chris's doctor said that anything strenuous could kill him. That reporter, whose name my brain refuses to remember, pokes Maya about her getting fired and then realizes that she's on a really big story. Len teaches Chris to conserve his movement. James agrees to Maya's request to have the riders meet him, but it turns out it's an ambush. Xaviax gives the Cho brothers their new decks, and then, oh yeah, we do actually see Kamen Rider Axe and Kamen Rider Spear. Oops, Ma'am! Episode couldn't start off much better, revealing a pizza. It looks pretty good, but a weird thing I did notice is that it's cut into 16 slices. This pizza is for at most 4 people, and spoilers, it's for 3 people. You really don't have to cut the slices that small.
Get on with it!
Okay, good point. When Len kinda stares at his slice and then drops it back on the plate, Kit asks if they have pizza like this on Ventara. Not like this, he says. We have good pizza. Ouch! But actually, this question kind of touches on a point that's been rattling around in my mind lately that ties into stuff like having pizza on Ventara. What is Ventara? Is Ventara another world, another planet out in the cosmos that you can only get to through the mirrors of Earth for whatever reason? Or is it something more like an alternate dimension, maybe an alternate timeline since there's all these duplicates?
The world may never know.
This feels like a bit of an odd time to start establishing some character backstory, but I guess they wanted to get it out of the way. Kit asks Len about his childhood, and Len says his childhood was being Kamen Rider Wing Knight. The Ventaran Kamen Riders were selected at a young age. Only the best, the brightest, the most athletic were selected, an honor that their parents were proud enough of to let them go and train and give their lives for this at a young age. Kit explains that he grew up as a troublemaker, a Bart Simpson type. He tells a story about getting in trouble once for riding his bike across a football field. Chris asks him why that would get him in trouble, and he says, "It was the middle of the fourth quarter. His team even got a penalty for having 12 men on the field." And I really hope Kit was joking about that last part because...
That's not how it works.
Seriously, maybe a delay of game penalty, but not 12 men on the field. Kit is not one of the... Anyway, Kit says that he was honestly worried after that he was going to get expelled, but then his dad showed up with his bike and his leather jacket, talked to the principal, and suddenly there was no expulsion. Makes it almost sound kind of like a mobster thing, you know. We're gonna go see the guy, have a little bit of a conversation, might have to rough him up a little bit, bada bing, bada boom. Chris is clearly taken aback at hearing about a supportive father. Kit doesn't pick up on this vibe at all and says, surely Chris's father would have done the same thing for him. Chris says, no, not really, and then leaves. He thanks Kit for the pizza that he took maybe 2 bites of, and Kit feels really embarrassed, even though really there's no way he could have known. After the titles, we see Chris riding down the road, flashing back to his dad yelling at the doctor, Strike dissing his asthma, all that fun stuff. He stops on the side of a road and takes a walk about only like 15 feet or so, staring out into the distance and telling himself to get it together and to make this mean something and make it count. And apparently this road that he stopped on the side of is just a very short distance away from a tall as F cliff, because he is looking out over the entire city of Los Angeles from like top of a mountain height. At the bookstore, Trent is grilling Maya on the latest Kamen Rider news, hardly able to believe that Len suspects that JTC is a Kamen Rider. I mean, I can't believe that either, because I'm pretty sure the show has done nothing to establish that suspicion. Obviously, at this point, the audience knows that JTC is Kamen Rider Strike, but I really don't think Len or anyone else has mentioned anything about suspecting that fact. Maya, being the usual good friend she is kind of half listening and distracted, and then we see why as a message comes to her laptop. Of course, she also could have been distracted by sterling, intelligent questions from Trent like, JTC is JTC. How could he be a Kamen Rider?
That's stupid! You're stupid! Stop being stupid!
The message on the laptop is from JTC, and hey, guess what? He's got a cover story. He tells Maya that he was attacked by mirror monsters, but saved by the Kamen Riders. Lacey walks up to the bookstore, and I had paused here to kind of catch up on recapping and noticed this time that there was somebody sitting behind her with a newspaper. I was gonna say that it was JTC because that's a trick he's pulled before, but the message came from JTC, and this is early 2000s. It's not really so much with the texting to the computer, it's more computer to compute anyway. But instead, they reveal who this is right away. It's... you know, it's her reporter chick, Rebecca? I had to look it up. It's Michelle. Anyway, it's Michelle spying on the bookstore. But before we worry about that, let's take a good solid couple minutes to worry about what a terrible character Lacey is right now. Seriously, at this point, my brain is desperately clinging to this half-remembered little thread that Lacey does get some redemption later on in the story. She has once again come to tell Maya off for being obsessed about the Kamen Rider stuff, and even weirdly edges towards slut-shaming, mentioning all these weird boys she's hanging around. Lacey says she expects these kind of superhero fantasies from Trent, but Maya is a grown-up. When Trent objects that he is also a grown-up, she says this is girl talk and to butt out. I know I have a lot of younger viewers on this channel. I need y'all to do me a favor. Any of you watching this that are under the age of 18, can you just plug your ears when the cartoon fish shows up and keep them plugged until he's gone? Thanks!
Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you forever. Fuck yourselves. Go fuck yourselves, you fucks.
You do not get to insult the man and then tell him that it's just girl talk, you bitch! She does that again, by the way. Ugh. The frustrating thing about this scene is that, yes, what Lacey is saying is understandable. It sounds insane. There's no way to prove the existence of the riders because they don't show up on film. You have to witness something related to it happening to be able to see it. That's the other thing. Unless you've encountered mirror creatures or the mirror world, you can't witness them with your own eyes. But what I really think it does is just makes Maya and Lacey's friendship seem incredibly shallow. If one of your best friends is that concerned and paranoid and worried that the world is coming to an end, yes, of course you can think they're losing their mind, but don't you try to look into it a little bit? Maybe go with them when they say that something related to all of that is happening? Anyway, Lacey invites Maya out dancing that night, but Maya refuses, saying this is too important. You know, the fate of the world is more important than going dancing, but as far as I remember in terms of the story, nothing related to Kamen Rider stuff was scheduled to happen that night, so maybe you just go dancing with the girl to shut her up for a while? Lacey shakes her head and turns to leave without saying a word. Passing right back by Michelle, who calls someone and says that she thinks she's found a way to get the information that they wanted. It's weird, it doesn't quite feel like a call to an editor.
Suspense.
Back at Kit's apartment arena, where the Warriors have a game at 8:30, Len drops kind of a bomb on Kit, but it is a very big honor. Len has decided that if the Ventaran Kamen Riders go on, if they do defeat Xaviax, they are going to need to replace Kamen Rider Dragon Knight because he was the traitor to the rest of the team. He wants Kit to formally take over as Kamen Rider Dragon Knight. It's a big honor, with an equally big catch to it. The Ventaran Kamen Riders lie in suspended animation until they're needed, only waking up otherwise once every 12 years. On top of that, they live on Ventara. Kit would be leaving his home, his family, his dad, his friends. He tells Len that he needs some time to think about it, and very understandingly, Len tells him to take all the time he needs. We cut to the Cho brothers and James sitting on their motorcycles and clearly waiting for something to happen. Chris rides his bike past the entrance of the alley. That's the guy? Looks like a wimp. Yeah, what a wimpy looking guy. Riding his motorcycle past an alleyway. They tell JTC to get their money ready because this is not going to take long. Thankfully, Danny refers to his brother Albert by name. Albert is the one wearing the beanie hat. I still had to look up Danny's name. They stop the dude who rode past the alley, and it's not Chris, it's Len. Listen, jackets, motorcycles, helmets, they all start to look the same. Of course, this being Len, he knows who these people are. Well, I mean, he doesn't know these people, but by their faces, he knows that they're Kamen Riders anyway. There's a weird sequence here where Danny jump kicks at Len's back, and they show it in slow motion, like Len is going to instinctively sense it and whip around and block him over away or something. No, the kick lands, he gets smacked around a little bit and knocked down a hill. Turns out this hill lips off onto concrete after a ledge a good 2, maybe 3 foot drop. But when the brothers get down the hill, Len is standing there waiting for them. They start to transform, but heroes, are you ready for this one? Len snatches their decks, calling them amateurs.
Fucking genius!
So y'all know that kung fu keep away trope with the item where there's someone's trying to grab it and someone keeps moving and yeah, that. Despite having their decks, these are the things that give them power. These are their morphers. Len kicks one of the decks into Ventara, and then kicks Albert into Ventara. Danny tackles Len into Ventara, into a place full of boxes that say, Special TV Microwave Computer. Well, of course, Ventara's most famous product, the Special TV Microwave Computer. Len leads the two on a chase, I'm guessing just to tire the two of them out. He finally confronts them, throwing their decks over a railing behind him. And then he takes them out, throwing Danny into a metal pole and knocking him out, and then throwing Albert over his shoulder off of the railing. Mind you, they're on the second floor. It's a good 30 to 40 foot drop to the floor below. He did hit a railing and then landed on a bunch of boxes of those special TV microwave computers, but otherwise he could have died. And then Len walks away. The two of them are alive. The two of them are both conscious. And he leaves them with their decks.
What are you talking about?
They run for their bikes to chase after Len, but Len has cabled the wheels together so the bikes aren't going anywhere. JTC shows up to gloat since the two of them had said this was going to be so easy. Meanwhile, Kit is riding somewhere and stops, for some reason, conveniently right near where Chris is trying to write something. He stops when Kit walks up and asks what's going on, and the two of them talk about Chris's dad. Kit can't believe that Chris's dad would be mad. I mean, he got a medical discharge from the Marine Corps. Chris says, just try telling him that. I would like to point out that we have not once seen Chris's dad directly express disappointment in him. He chewed out the doctor, but not Chris. He was a little short-tempered with Chris, but anyway, moving on. Chris explains to Kit that his family have always been Marines, going all the way back to World War I, and every single one of them was a hero. BS. Not that they've all been Marines, of course, but every single one of them was a hero. I mean, yes, if you're speaking in the very general sense of, like, anybody who serves in the military and willingly puts their life on the line in defense of their country is a hero, sure, every single one of them was a hero. But this show tends to be a little more on the nose with its definition of heroics, and I'm just not buying that every single one of them, 4 or 5 generations deep, directly served in an engagement where they had a chance to be heroic.
No, I don't buy it.
Chris at least feels like a disappointment to his dad, so Kit suggests telling him he's a Kamen Rider, which he says he was thinking about doing, probably what he was writing just there. There's 2 little problems here. Number 1, the same issue as with Lacey. There's not really any proof besides transforming, and we're gonna get to this later. Number 2, Kit, you have been directly asked by law enforcement to keep this quiet. It's not really great advice to have somebody tell about it just because. They hear the mirror shimmers and Chris is feeling sorry for himself, so he decides to go off half-cocked and try to claim this fight all for himself. But Kit, of course, won't let him, and they both transform. Sting runs off ahead, frustrating Dragon Knight. The monster is maybe some kind of Garuda. It's a bird type thing that has a long whip chain that is keeping Sting tied up and tossed around, and the asthma is starting to kick in. Yeah, definitely a Garuda or some kind of a phoenix, as it can fly around and use fire attacks which hit both riders. Dragon Knight gets caught in a Johnny Cash ring of fire, but Sting uses Copy Vent to produce DK's sword and attack. That's a real smart move. Besides the fact that DK wasn't using his sword, so what did you copy? Dragon Knight keeps trying to get Sting to back down as his breathing gets worse and worse and worse, but Sting insists on doing this on his own. He activates his final vent and, hey, actually takes out the monster. And when they get back to Earth, he's short of breath, but he's okay. Score 1 for Chris. Kit heads to the hospital to visit his dad, but his dad is gone. He calls out, "Hey, where's my father?" And nobody answers or shows up. Seriously, nobody else enters this scene. None of the doctors, none of the nurses, none of the security officers, none of the cops, none of the other patients. Everybody's just gone, apparently. Anyway, in his dad's place on the bed is a big, palm-sized snake medallion. Strike! Let's read the cards. Episode 18, The Brothers Cho. Pros: good episode to characterize Chris. The Len-Danny Albert fight was funny, and Len choosing Kit was a moving moment. Cons: what's this episode called again? All set up and very little payoff. And keep the decks. It's never a good sign when I have to scroll back up and try to find a third pro. The Brothers Cho gets 2.5 cards out of 5. I wouldn't say that Chris is a terribly deep character, but what we get for him is very well characterized. To the point that something that may have sounded like a critique, my mentioning that we've never seen his dad get mad at him, we've only seen his dad once, but that's besides the point, I don't entirely consider a critique. You see, he's internalizing. He's taking that familial shame onto himself, even if it's not being offered. Chris has maybe the strongest motivation to be a Kamen Rider besides Len. This actually balances him really well against the Cho brothers. They just want money. Chris wants honor, respect, and his dad's love. This is going to factor into a con coming up, but I have to admit that whole Len-Danny Albert fight was chief kung fu slapstick. As I said, that classic keep away scene. Here you go. Ooh, you almost got it. Ooh, over here. Knock down a spoon. Oh, go. It's over your head. Oh, get it. Yeah. Etc., etc. You know, it does a lot to really establish that the Cho brothers are really in over their heads. There is a gulf between the talent levels of Wing Knight and the Cho brothers. This moment ends up kind of lost in this episode, hence me having to go back and find it. But the scene where Len offers Kit to be the permanent Kamen Rider Dragon Knight was just really nice. It's clearly not easy for Len to open himself emotionally like that, and Kit saw it as the honor it is, despite knowing the heavy cost of accepting. It was a short, quick scene that established that their friendship is moving to another level, and the level of respect between the two. Hey, do you remember that episode of Kamen Rider Dragon Knight where we learn that Chris cares so deeply about his father's respect and family tradition, how that's driving him to act recklessly in battle, and how Len wants Kit to become the permanent Kamen Rider Dragon Knight, and the meaning of that moment between them? In that episode titled The Brothers Cho, this show has a weird tendency to name episodes out of some kind of obligatory order and then not have the titles give anything to the episode itself. We just saw the Cho brothers at the end of the previous episode, so this episode had to be titled The Brothers Cho. We'll probably learn more about them in a future episode. That won't be titled The Brothers Cho. This episode feels like an entire episode of setup for the next episode to pay off. Overall, that's fine. They've been really good at that 1-2 payoff, but I can't help always having it be a tick against the former episode. This episode features a lot of backstory, characterizing, talking. There are 2 major fights in this episode, and I mean, all of that backstory and talking and stuff is good, but 2 fights in this episode, and one of them does not feature any transformed riders. The monster fight, once again, felt really more like a formality, other than, I guess, establishing that Sting's being impulsive. And for the love of Zordon's Windexed, shiny glass tube, Len had taken away the 2 riders' decks, had them in his hands, and by the end of the fight, he essentially gave them back to them. There's no reason for him to give them back the decks. Listen, I do realize the decks are DNA locked. He can't use them. He can't give them to anyone to use. But while he has them, they can't use them. And that's really the important part. Seriously, you can do this sequence 95% the same. Still have him knock out Danny. Still have him try to kill Albert by throwing him off a railing. Tie up the bikes. Walk away. Go back to Kit's apartment and lock the decks in a safe. Xaviax goes, "You 2 idiots lost the decks? You're out." And he moves on. This borders on that whole, well, there's not really a plot thing otherwise, but then just don't have them lose the decks in the first place. Have them kicked up into a tree and get stuck there, and they look foolish as they try to climb the tree, and Len gets them down, and then they finally get up there and get their decks, and then they're gone. Just, you want them to look foolish, and they are, to be honest, this is a minor spoiler, they are going somewhere with this, but knowing where they're going with it, I still just don't think it was necessary. I have to admit, this episode was a step back. They wanted it to serve the story, but it's laid on a touch too thick. It really feels like one of those Boom Power Rangers comics, one of those issues where they take all the time to have talking and backstory and not very much action, and then the next story pays off all of that setup. Just a little more action in this would have made it worthwhile. If the Cho brothers had been able to transform, I think that would have been enough. Still though, not a bad episode by any means. Let's take a peek at that potential payoff in the 19th episode of Kamen Rider Dragon Knight, Semper Fi. JTC tries to recruit Chris to Xaviax's side. An all-out battle starts at the bookstore, and when Strike joins in, the end result is devastating. That is going to wrap up another Kamen Rider Dragon Knight episode review. Thank you, heroes, so much as always for watching. Now that the video's done, you can let me know what you thought of this episode, as well as my review of it, down in the comments below. And while you're down there, make sure you smack that thumbs up button and let me know that you enjoyed this video. Until next time, heroes, may the power of the cards protect you. Hello there, heroes! I'm the Orange Ranger, this is Jadzia, and welcome to another Kamen Rider Dragon Knight episode review. There's a difference, like, I'm willing to have you in the shot, I'm not willing to have you... Hello there, heroes! I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to another Kamen Rider Dragon Knight episode review. October was a fairly quiet month over here. Oh, you're getting relentless all of a sudden. Hello there, heroes. I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to another Kamen Rider Dragon Knight episode review. October was kind of a quiet month over here, as I did a lot of focusing over on Orange Ranger Plays. including a week of scary games for Pumpkin Ranger Week. Jadzia! Hello there, heroes! I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to another Kamen Rider Dragon Knight episode review. Hello there, heroes! I'm the Orange Ranger, this is Jadzia, and welcome to another Kamen Rider Dragon Knight episode review. October was a bit of a quiet month here on Orange Ranger videos, as I did more focusing on Orange Ranger plays, including a week of Hello there, heroes! I'm the Orange Ranger, and welcome to another Kamen Rider Dragon Knight episode review here. Anyway, it's been an even hotter minute since I've posted a Dragon Knight review, as here on this channel, I got some vlogs caught up, and then a cat jumped on me. Anyway, it's been an even hotter minute since I posted a Dragon Knight review, since on this channel, I worked to get some vlogs caught up, and then only the best, the brightest, the smartest, the toughest. The message on the laptop is from JTC, and hey, guess what? He gives her a cover story. He was, wasn't he? That's the guy? What up? We cut to the Cho brothers and the other one. Danny tackles Len into Ventara, and they run after garbage. Not that they've all been Marines, of course. Down in the comments below, I